Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Overtime. Once again, I'm welcoming back Rich Pierle, and we are going to continue that conversation about digital transformation because, man, my brain got going after that last one, and I hope it did the same for you. So without much further ado, Rich, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. So where we left off last time, you were really educating everybody on what it is, where to start. I think we left off, if I'm not mistaken, partnerships, yep. Establishing those. So I want to get your brain going a little more because I remember in that episode, you talked about how COVID was a catalyst for this. Now, that got me thinking, do people only digitally transform when they're forced to? Where should they even begin at?
Well, I think in large companies that I've worked at, the strategy that seemed to work for me was what I would call going to the light. Finding a business person or a functional leader or a regional leader that's got a specific problem they're trying to solve. Because I always use the metaphor of a hammer looking for a nail.
Yep.
And, a lot of times you have well-intentioned, IT leaders or, people on your team, and they know that this technology is going to solve this business problem, right? They're experts in the technology and they want it to work. But you need to find somebody in the organization that has a problem that is something that's going to work for that technology. And so that's sometimes the hard challenge is, even within an organization, because, one step removed is, as a CIO, I have everybody and their brother trying to sell me a solution, right? I've got Salesforce, I've got, ServiceNow, I've got all of these, really, really smart people that get paid really well to sell and that are amazing at selling, trying to sell in. And they may be selling something that isn't appropriate, right, for the problem that we're trying to solve, but they're so good at selling, the business person is like, I know, that this wrench that you can only use on Tuesdays, after a vernal equinox, I know that wrench is what you need. And, knowing the organization and kind of how we are, it's probably not, right, or at least not today. And so, it's how do you balance the business need with, your ability, because it's not just about a solution. It's also about your organization's ability to absorb the technology, because I've seen organizations at different maturity levels that, want to launch a rocket, and, it's difficult to launch a rocket if you're still figuring out how to make a fire.
Yeah.
And so, you have to align, solution, with organizational maturity level, versus their problem. Now you can move very fast if you have a program that's driven by the CEO or by a very senior leader with, what I would call a burning platform level, situation. And so that's really, the hard part is trying to assess, the level of the problem, the solutions that you have, and then trying to make it work, given, that kind of multivariable equations. And where I've seen it be successful is where you've got a motivated business leader at any level, where you've got a solution that's the right solution, or even close to the right solution. And everybody is, like rallying around that this is the right thing to do. And so the change management aspect, a lot of times gets left off of this, but it's super important. And those are situations that are going to be successful or have a higher likelihood of success. And so that's the kind of, intricate dance that you have to go in order for these things to really work and to sustain them. Because, as a CIO or as a business leader, nobody wants to do something, spend a chunk of, hard-earned money, and then have it not be used or not get its, desired, return on investment for the organization.
Now, it's interesting you kind of say that with the ROI, and how it's handed off and everything. If you were to tell any, whether it be a chief information officer, chief supply chain officer, chief sales officer, when they're kind of looking for this technology, what is your advice to look for and finding that right fit for them? Like, outside of, if you got this wrench that only works on Tuesday at 5 p.m., great. That's cool. I know I need it, but is the cost going to outweigh that one time I need it? What is your advice to people looking to adopt new technologies, like these leaders, like how they should do it?
I think it's, you want to bring the right stakeholder group together. And again, it depends on the size, right? I mean, I think it's an answer if it's $1 million or less. I think it's an answer if it's $1 to $5 million. I think it's an answer if it's, greater than $5 million to spend, right? And I think it's the stakeholder group that you bring along, right? I think if, I'll pick on a chief procurement officer and putting in a REBA or putting in a procurement solution, most companies, the chief procurement officer is going to be driving that decision. Obviously, they want to make sure they get IT involved at some point, but unless there's a higher level ERP decision that would be made at the CFO or CEO level, which in many cases isn't likely.
Yeah.
Then the CPO is going to drive it, and they're going to drive the program with support of IT. And so, some CIOs are like, unless it's SAP, you can't put it in. Others are like, well, you can put it in, but it's not going to integrate. And so it's really, having those conversations and not doing it in a way where you create a lot of organizational friction. And it's hard because, it's work. CIOs are overtaxed. IT organizations are overtaxed, but at the same time, you really can't get in the way of progress, right? And if there's a need, for a new procurement solution, as in this example, then you really, you need to support, your peers, and what they're doing, because more than likely, they have the money to do it. They've gone through a selection process. It's probably the right thing, and so, but it's hard, right? Because for every person you support, you're going to have other parts of the organization that say, well, why do we need this? So procurement wants it. Supply chain may say, this is going to screw up my process. And the whole, we used to call it the law of unintended consequences, because, and this is where, the maturity level, your architecture organization is really going to be tested. What are the impacts of some of these things? And depending on the size of the organization, it could be a significant impact. And, if you're only looking at it through the lens of the chief procurement officer, that could be a problem. And so that's where you've got to kind of, do some of this analysis. Now, the good news is, a lot of the solutions I see coming down the pipe it's all about microservices. It's all about how do you move data around. And, the strategy really that, I was trying to go to, and I see a lot of organizations trying to get to, is I don't want to touch my core ERP. I don't want to touch the big, heavy iron systems. I want to be able to get the data out. I want to be able to scrub it, whether it's a, data warehouse or data lake or, data puddle, whatever that is. I want to use microservices to get to the data enterprise service bus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the stuff that's really around the core ERP and not mess around with the programming inside of it. And I think the less you touch your systems of record and the more that you give users, obviously security gated access to what they're supposed to have access to, I think the better off you're going to be. And I think the solutions that help you get there actually decrease the cost of getting to a meaningful solution. And so, I've got customers who, may never want to get off a mainframe. And to be honest, with some of the technology today, I don't think you need to. I think you've got to be more creative in how you solution it and get information out of those systems, and obviously keep those systems up to date. And so and especially with a lot of the VM, you can keep them going for a long time, and with just, regular hardware upgrades. And so it's just, that's also part of it is, the technology staying fresh on where the market is going, and understanding that you don't have to, what you had to do 20 years ago isn't the same as what you have to do today. And so making sure they understand it. And I think that's one of the challenges people are facing, is it just changing so fast, is how do I keep up with all the names, with all the consolidation, and what's going to work in my environment.
So, and, I listen to that and I think, is there a way to identify kind of the reality of what actually is working versus what is not, versus hype, like what you looked for, for any type of technology or solution? It's, I know we talked about partnership, but like maybe if you give some advice on, outside of just partnering with someone like yourself, what is it that people should be looking for?
So everybody's got a network, and actually some of the work that I've been doing myself is, going back through my network. It's like, who do I listen to? It's almost like a little exercise I think everybody should do, I don't know if it's once a year, but every so often, it's who do you have in your network, and who is a smart person that I should listen to and I should probably engage with more frequently. Who's somebody that I just like and it's fun talking to, and I need to do a better job of engaging with them. And then who are some reach people that I think are pretty smart, and maybe I should try to see if I can, get into their, circle of people that I should talk to. Yeah. There's one guy I have on LinkedIn who, I think he's a former McKinsey guy that does a lot of digital stuff. He does a lot of posts, but his posts are pretty good, and he's always talking about new technologies, AI, and stuff like that. And so he's somebody that I would put on kind of that third list of somebody I should make a more formal, how do I connect with and have a conversation with. And what I've found is, especially in COVID, in COVID times, people are actually very open to talk to you. And so don't think that you're kind of, putting somebody out. I've had people reach out to me, and it's like, yeah, I'm flattered, but it's like, I'd love to help you. And so, I think that's just part of it. And there's a lot of knowledge out there. But you gotta find it, and you've got to figure out who actually knows stuff, about what's going on and can talk in a cogent way. I mean, I'd like to believe I'm pretty good at finding out, who the, kind of BS artists are, and getting to, conversations with folks, who actually know the technology, and who've, kind of, been there and done that.
Yeah, no. And that's a great thing, because one of the things that I've heard from a number of my guests, and I feel this personally, you've known me, you've probably heard me say it before, it's all about authenticity.
Sure.
Everything in our world anymore is so misconstrued and taken out of context that it's, it's about finding that authentic relationship that you could have with somebody. And do you feel like that adds a lot when you, in your realm, when you're in your network and you want to learn about a technology, the people you're looking for, you find that authentic relationship? Is that interpreting that right?
Yeah. I mean, I think you want authenticity with content, right? I mean, I know there's authentic people that just don't have the knowledge or content. It doesn't make them bad people, but I also want to talk to somebody that knows something, right? So I don't mean that wrong, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, no. And I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's this bigger picture of everything, especially regarding digital transformation. It's not just one thing or this step here or a 3-step, 12-step program. This is a whole mindset. This is a readaptation. This is, everything from your network, who you're taking your advice from, who you're looking at for a solution, and making sure they align with everything that you have going on in your team. So I think this is a lot. And again, as I asked last show, I hope you'd come on for another episode so we can.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is fun. It's hopefully this is getting after some of those questions that people have.
Definitely. So, all right, Rich. Well, thank you, and everybody who listened in. I want to thank you all for joining. And remember to hit that subscribe button below. Leave any comments or questions for Rich, and we'll be sure to reach out and talk to you again. Thank you, Rich, for joining.
All right. Thank you, man. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.